Hi, my name is Jennifer Bailey, and for my ethnography, I read JUJU. It's written by Christopher Waterman, and it's a social history and ethnography on an African popular music, which is JUJU. This particular book, Waterman actually broke it into two parts, hence the social history and ethnography. The first few chapters of this particular book are all about the social history of JUJU and how it came to be. And then the ethnography part is actually him getting into the whole world of JUJU music and all of its bits and pieces and its people and actually gets into that part of it. So the one thing that Waterman actually does in this particular book, which I found really kind of fascinating, is that he gives you a real social breakdown of everything to do with JUJU music, which is basically JUJU music is part of the Yoruba tribe of Nigeria. Basically, they are a West African, southwestern African, I should say, people, and they are called Yoruba. And there's so many different types of music and everything that takes place, that's part of their lives and their world. And during this particular time that Waterman's writing about, it's JUJU music that's actually super popular at the time. And so basically the book takes place all the way from 1920s all the way through, you get through the First World War, goes in through World War II, goes through the Nigerian Civil War portion, which happens in like 67 through 1970, I believe. And then the book actually goes into the 70s and 80s where JUJU really starts to kind of see its downfall. It kind of gets weeded out by new musics and new styles and everything that's really happening. In the beginning portion of it, it talks specifically about a social history. And the social history of JUJU music and the importance of it with its people, basically. So for the Yoruba people, music was really their own form of communication with outside worlds and outside people and other things that were really happening. And so this was really their form of communicating, and they would use this type of communication specifically for things like ethics, social norms. They would go through like political pieces and things like that. The music was just used as a way of basically creating the culture of these people. There's so much that's happening during this time frame and throughout their world and everything, with going through the World War I, getting through those bits and pieces and then kind of picking up, only to then get thrown into World War II as well, and having to go through all that turmoil and everything that's actually happening in their land, and everything that's going on in Nigeria all by itself anyway. And so this music is what is being used to really, for the people to really understand what's happening out there. But it's also used as entertainment and fun, and as well as really serious events. JUJU performers, or band leaders, kind of as they're called, just like as we know them, they really tell stories throughout their music, and whole albums will be dedicated to a specific thing that's happening in their world, in their lives, as well as the world of around them and things like that. Politicians was a big thing for politicians to kind of hire these musicians and to promote them, or to bash other politicians and things that were actually happening, especially during the big oil boom that was happening in Nigeria during that time as well. And as Nigeria was kind of building its own world, and these people were kind of creating a new culture and everything all around them. So much was happening, and it was just, it's a really super in-depth book. It's there's so much to it. It's almost really difficult to kind of get through, because Waterman gives you so much information, as well as he uses their language, the Yoruba language, in many places, but he doesn't actually explain it to you. So that was one of the parts that I had a really difficult time with in this particular book, was the fact that he doesn't actually take the time to explain it, or how you even pronounce it. So I apologize, I may be pronouncing some of this stuff wrong, but this is what I could find as far as how to pronounce these items. Waterman does, his approach to this is practice theory, as far as how his theoretical approach and stuff to it. He loves these people. He loves music. It comes through in everything that he talks about. He has these huge built up lifelong relationships with his informants and the people of of Yoruba, and these big relationships with these JUJU band leaders, which is super difficult to get into, because once you got into the 70s and 80s, they got so high ranked, and they were thought so highly of, that they had to pretty much kind of start barricading themselves into their own world. It was really hard to break into and get into the JUJU band leaders' world. And so Waterman was able to do that, to the point where he was actually even able to spend and do some performances with some of the JUJU bands. And so that all comes through in his writing, which comes through his whole method, which is, participant observation, but also research. He uses a lot of research from other people, prior to actually even going and doing it. So he didn't write this book right away. He spent many, many, many years going back and forth and visiting and getting all the information and stuff that he wanted, and ends up using a lot of other people's work and stuff as well as part of his work. And so it's a pretty amazing book overall. If I had to say, as far as like something that maybe would be an issue as far as ethics, I think the only thing really that Waterman doesn't actually touch on is anything to do with the Yoruba people specifically. Like, he doesn't actually include anything from them or about them specifically. He just focuses on the band leaders and the importance of music and the JUJU music, and how it's performed, and how it's changed throughout this whole cycle of life that it's been created. And so I kind of feel like he leaves that part of it out, so you don't really get that experience from the perspective of the actual everyday person, and how the music actually affects them. I'm sure he probably did. He just didn't go through any of that stuff. So, but overall, it's a really, really exciting book. It's basically an ethnography on music and music culture, and Waterman does an excellent job. And I would really compare, Waterman to Swedenborg in a lot of this, because of how closely Swedenborg is with, the Palestinians. Waterman does exactly the same type of thing. He has this closeness, and he has this in-depth knowledge and this in-depth understanding, and the way that he writes is super similar to Swedenborg, very much so in that respect. But he's also very similar, with Basso, and the fact that he takes a lot of time to explain his parts and the things that are really important to him, and how he comes about, to explain some of these things. So, a lot of different mixtures in there. And like most of the ethnographies we read, I really feel like I'd have to read this 3 or 4 more times to really kind of catch everything. But I really enjoyed it. So anyway, that's a little bit on the ethnography I read. Again, it's JUJU by Christopher Waterman. And again, it talks about a very specific type of music of the Southwestern African population of the Yoruba people. Thank you so much, and have a great day.